This is Overcoming Performance Christianity, the podcast that leads you on a path to freedom in your walk with Christ. If you're a longtime Christian, but something's missing in your relationship with God, then you might be caught up in performing for the Lord. Find out more as we dive into this episode of Overcoming Performance Christianity. I'm John Fugler, on the road from performance to relationship in my walk with Christ, taking you with me now, helping you gain freedom from the bondage of performance Christianity. That's what this podcast does. I'm a lifelong Christian media guy, husband, father, grandfather of 9, and also the CEO of Fresh Faith 24/7. I'm an author, and my latest book, Silence Your Inner Pharisee, Ditch Performance and Embrace Radical Freedom in Christ. Thank you to those who have picked it up, and especially those who have left a review. So if you're reading it, make sure you leave a review before you finish the book and put it away. If you do that on Amazon, that would be great. Well, our topic today, it's interesting. I'm in the midst of reading the audiobook. The book came out in print form a month ago. I'm recording this on the 4th of July, so it came out June 7th, almost a month ago. And I'm actually at a part here that is about pain. And I took a break from my reading, and my crown came out. I got a temporary crown right now, speaking of pain. And so it came out while I was having lunch. And God has a sense of humor. I got to tell you, I was in the middle of reading the chapters about pain, and I was at the point of reading the story of a good friend who was kind enough to share how pain has drawn him to Christ. That's in the book. I'm going to share that with you today on the show. It's so good. And we're going to dip back into the archives. I want you to hear from Jim and his wife, JeanneKay, about a painful experience in their lives, not physical, but emotional pain. What I'm talking about here on this episode is about pain, and about the story I'll share with you of his is about his physical pain. And I was in the midst of reading the chapters about painful experiences I've had, especially, I think it was either 2 or 3 years ago over 4th of July weekend that I had the most physically painful experience of my life. And it taught me a lot about how well I knew Jesus. I didn't pass the test real well at first, and I've grown in my relationship with the Lord because of that. Maybe you have too, and you can relate to pain. I want to read Jim's stories to you here. It's from the book. There are 7 stories, I believe, all together in the book that I've asked my friends to share. And I hope through Silence Your Inner Pharisee, as you read it, it will really deepen the intimacy of your relationship with Christ, whether you're going through pain or not. This has potential to really deepen that relationship as we go into what is really at the core. What is the core of a deep, intimate, personal relationship with Jesus Christ? And I share that in the book. But let me share with you, by the way, this is the last episode of the season. Season 2 coming to an end. Then we take the summer off and come back in the fall, and we'll look a little different in the fall, just like we did this past fall from season 1. We take a different twist on this podcast, and I've got something that I'll be introducing in the fall as a new twist on it and a new look, a new sound, I guess. I'll still be on it to the podcast. But this is the final episode of this season. What I'm reading to you here is Jim's story, Jim Van Houten, good friend of mine. And he shares about when pain doesn't go away. So listen closely to this. This is pretty amazing what he's gone through. He says, I played tennis aggressively for 40 years. I coached Little League for nearly 20 years and was a Boy Scout leader for over a decade. I also ran my own company. Then 12 years ago, it all started. Shooting pains in my lower back and down my legs. The orthopedic surgeon recommended taking large doses of Advil. That worked for a while. Then he sent me to a pain management doctor. After dozens of treatments of epidural and cortisone shots, he used radiofrequency ablation, RFA, for 6 years. That's where they stick needles in the areas of pain, sending an electric current for 2 minutes to cauterize the nerve endings. It wasn't fun. While experiencing some temporary relief, the pain always returned stronger than before. I was in such agony that I was bent over, using a cane and unable to do much. On a scale of 1 to 10, I was living at 7 to 8. I prayed continually for God to ease my pain. The time had come to yield to surgery. The doctor fused L3, L4, and L5 during a 5-hour operation. For 2 years, I felt healthy again. But then, further down my spine, the pain returned. Off I went to the pain management doctor for 4 more years of RFA treatments. Another back surgery followed. It's been 5 months since then. Now my pain level maxes out at a 5, but there are moments when it is severe. Throughout this ordeal, I have maintained my faith in the Lord. I read and reread some favorite passages that comfort me. Romans 5:3-5. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. James 1:2-4. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet various kinds of trials, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Romans 8:18. For I consider that the sufferings of the present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. Admittedly, this life of pain gets to me mentally and emotionally, but with the pain comes the realization that I'm not invincible. Can't solve all my problems by myself, then I am physically weak. Above all, I know that I need God's help to get me through the day. I thank Him for every new day He gives me, praying for the strength to endure. My back pain has truly brought me so much closer to our Lord. He has given me such lasting peace. This new relationship with Jesus, forged through serious back pain, has inspired me to seek ways to serve Him and others. I will do so until He calls me home. I thank the Lord for my beloved wife of more than 50 years. During the day, she encourages me to take time to rest. She is my angel. If you experience the depth of pain that I do, turn to the Lord. He will give you the means to get through another day. Your attitude is a choice. Rather than being bitter, which aggravates the pain, choose to be thankful. Spend time in prayer and studying the Bible. Be a blessing to those around you. God loves you and wants the best for you. You and I must trust in Him. That's powerful. So powerful. Jim Van Houten is a retired financial planner and author of several books on finance. He's a good friend and a lover of Jesus. And I look forward to sharing with you my interview I did with Jim and JeanneKay Van Houten, taken from a previous episode. But it's so fitting that as I shared this story with you, that you can meet him if you didn't catch this episode before and hear from him in his own words. Going through physical pain, but the emotional pain of the loss of their son is far greater than the physical pain that they've gone through. And yet they have come into intimacy with God. It was a test of their relationship with Him, but they have always clung to the Lord, and at times like this especially. So I want you to hear that. Before we go into that interview, one of the things that many people have been doing who have been listening to this podcast, who have been reading the book, they're taking the spiritual self-assessment that I put together. And I would encourage you to go get it at freshfaith247.com and just click on assessment, or click the show notes, the link in the show notes, freshfaith247.com, and click assessment. And you can take it. It only takes 3 minutes, and then there's some questions, analysis questions afterwards, and it'll help you determine, where am I in my relationship with God? How healthy is it? Where do I stand? So go ahead and take that assessment. And now into my interview with Jim and JeanneKay Van Houten. It was 20-something years ago that we met, and Jim met you first. Noonie and I were in Arizona, in Phoenix, at Grand Canyon University, watching a baseball game. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, I think, and it was 100 degrees. At least that's my recollection of it. And there was not a cloud in the sky. And it was July.
That's true.
It was July,
Yes.
I think. It was
Very hot.
Middle of the summer. Our sons were playing against each other, but we were from California. You're from Arizona. We just happened to be facing off against each other. I believe Noonie and I were about the only ones in the stands from our team, and you were the only one in the stands from your team. At least I remember it that way. And thank you for providing an umbrella of shade for us.
Yeah, you guys look like you really didn't know what it was like to be in Arizona in the summertime at a ball game.
We thought umbrellas were for rain, but no, you had yours for the shade. So we huddled under that. No, we really appreciate that. But that's the first time I got a chance to meet you. And then over the years, we got together again around baseball, around ministry, around finance, and got to know you. Jeff, your son, was the same age as our boys and ended up playing against each other a couple times. And we got to know you over the years, and it's been really special. So as we get together now, we're talking about Jeff and just the pain of losing a child, and you lost Jeff. Let's get to know him though first. Tell us about your son.
Well, we were blessed with 4 sons. Jeff was number 3, and he was an amazing athlete, even in his toddler years. His oldest brother was 7 years older. One time I was coaching him, my oldest one, in a batting cage that we had in our backyard. And he was 11 at the time, and Jeff was 4. After Jameson got through hitting the balls in the cage, Jeff wanted to hit. And I said, Jeff, this is set up for 11-year-olds. You haven't even had a ball hit yet. And he says, come on, Dad, let me try. Well, he got in the cage, and he started hitting the ball like crazy. When he was 9 years old, I told him I had to play golf in a charity tournament. I was a tennis player, not a golfer. So I took him to a golf course so he could learn how to play golf. We hit some balls on the driving range. Then I said, Jeff, let's go play 9 holes of golf. Well, he proceeded to par 3 out of the 9 holes on his first time ever playing golf. He loved baseball. He would find anybody in the house to get him to come out and put balls in the machine in the batting cage so he could hit balls. He lived and breathed baseball. Sometimes he'd take his bat to bed. We encouraged him to do other sports in the winter months, just to get a well-rounded, not get burnt out. But by 13, he wanted to play baseball year-round. Jeff is also a very giving child of ours. At Christmas, he would find that he got a gift, and one of his brothers really liked the gift that he got. He would go back, rewrap it, and give it to his brother. He would take all the money he saved up all year long and use it for Christmas for everybody else. Just a very giving, caring, loving person. And then our big thing was baseball.
Oh, yeah, I know all about that. JeanneKay, just tell us about Jeff from your perspective as a mom.
He had the biggest, greatest smile and would wake up and just be happy. That was just him, and just be loving and caring. And he was one who really always enjoyed having a good day, and it was fun being around him. We really enjoyed him.
Jim, you mentioned baseball, and you're a baseball family. You were 2 dedicated baseball parents, and you had some interesting times following Jeff around the country, didn't you?
I did. I wanted to tell you one story that you might enjoy. When he was playing high school baseball, Jeff always batted third in the lineup. He had power. And so we were playing a game that at a field that had a railroad track behind it. And when Jeff came up in one of the later innings, I forget the number, He hit a grand slam home run that was so far that it went out of the field, went out of the school grounds, and into the door of an open boxcar of a train that was going by at the time. And it gave a real loud bang. I happened to be filming that game, and so all the fans and I got to see it on film as he hit it into a boxcar. And they wrote an article about it in the newspaper and said there was a home run that went 453 miles. That's where the train stopped.
That's great.
And he continued on that. He had a wonderful career. He was recruited all the way from Miami, Florida, and Oklahoma State and California schools. But he ended up going to University of Arizona in Tucson. He loved the school, and that's where I went. But it's for those who don't live in Arizona, it's about 120 miles from where we lived in Phoenix.
Well, I'm sure you guys were happy that he went there. You know, you're probably grinning about that one, that he made that choice, right?
I was very happy he did. He was highly recruited by their number one competitor, Arizona State, which is in town here, but he wanted to go there. Going to see him play there, by the way, was an away game for me, because that meant I had to go down to a hotel room down there and eat meals out, because the games were Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon.
Well, I remember you made a lot of trips. Boy, I remember this like it was just last year. You talked about all the trips you made, like to the West Coast, because it was Pac-10 or Pac-12 at the time. And so you went everywhere.
Yes, of his 219 college games, I attended 176. So I was all over Washington and Oregon and Nevada and all over California, northern and southern. Went into New Mexico and all the way east as far as Notre Dame. So we actually got a chance to go to the College World Series in 2004.
Oh, that's amazing. Jeff got not only recruited into college, but also recruited into pro baseball. And so that's kind of where the story turns a little bit here and gets tough because he had everything going for him. Things were just motoring right along for his professional career. And then something happened, and maybe you could tell us that story.
Yeah, when he was in college, his best year, he batted .413 in the Pac-10, which is unheard of. Just a terrific, prolific hitter. And the Florida Marlins recruited Jeff into their system. His first year, he played in the New York Penn League and was MVP of that league. The second year, he was MVP of the next level up. And he continued. But the problem was every time he got injured, the trainers would give him opioids for the pain, and not just one, but several. And if you get too many of them, you make mistakes. So you don't react fast enough or whatever. So Jeff went through years of getting these opioids for the pains that he got running in the wall, sliding into bases, getting hit by pitches. And finally, in his fourth year, he made a mistake. He was up to bat. It was at the highest level before you get to the majors. And a 96-mile-an-hour fastball came inside. And instead of turning your left, he was a right-handed batter. Instead of turning your left side or your back towards the ball, he turned the other way, thinking jump out of the way. And the ball hit his knee and shattered his patella, tore his ACL, MCL. His knee was a mess. And it took, even after 2 surgeries and 24 months of rehab, his mother could run faster than he could.
At that point only.
Okay.
But his addiction to opioids began in professional baseball and continued after baseball.
How could something like that happen? Was he not monitored, or was this just a natural way of treating these athletes? I'm kind of confused here.
Back in those days, that was a way that you treated the pain that athletes were feeling. The whole idea of the minor leagues is to get you up to the major leagues. And so if you've got minor pains or intermittent pains, then they give you opioids so that you can perform and continue to perform at a high level and then get recruited to the majors.
JeanneKay, what were your thoughts at that time? Did you follow what was going on, or was it pretty much in the background?
I thought we knew what was going on, but when he's in pain, I can't fix his pain for him. Yeah. And so, but it was hard to live with.
The opioids affected his personality, and we struggled with that. He had anger issues at times, and other times was just as sweet as can be. It was up and down, and we spent about 4 months and over $100,000 to get him off of opioids. But then the substitute for that was alcohol, and he became an alcoholic. And there were a lot of automobile accidents and DUIs, and it was a struggle. It was a real struggle, and he would lose jobs. His baseball career was over after that knee was destroyed. You still got to run the bases. So we helped him as much best we could. He finally got going to AA, was doing well with AA, had in fact gone a year clean and sober through AA. He also worked for a company where he was involved in sales and was their top salesperson.
Wow. Sounds like things were turning around for him.
He was wonderful.
It was wonderful. He was the same old Jeff. He was so loving, and the family dinners were just terrific.
Just for a time frame, tell us what it was that from the time his baseball career ended to this time where he was able to seemingly recover.
His career ended in 2009, and he went back to college to get his college degree. He had one more year to go, and he did. In 2010, he graduated, and then we struggled with the opioids and finally got him to get off of those in 2014. And then we went back and forth between fighting alcoholism until 2019. And then COVID hit.
19 was his best year.
19 was his best year. And he was living by himself in an apartment, and he was doing quite well. And then the company he worked for, as soon as all these COVID restrictions hit in the spring of 2020, they decided their first course of action was to fire everybody. 37 people lost their jobs in one day at his company, including him. So he tried to get other jobs, but as you remember, during that early stages of COVID, a lot of businesses shut down and restaurants couldn't do anything. And we didn't know whether COVID was spread by touch or air or how it was spread. So people weren't hiring.
And people just felt isolated, and he felt isolated. And he was afraid of being around us because, what if he gave us COVID? So it was a really tough time.
So he started back drinking again. Now we would still go over to his apartment and bring him food and help him to pay his bills, his rent and everything, just to keep him on a good basis. But all of a sudden he started drinking again, and we tried to get him to go back to AA. The drinking continued, and then we have a summer home that we go to that's about 2.5 hours from here. And we didn't get a chance to see Jeff for a month. And then all of a sudden at 4:30 in the morning, I got a phone call from a policeman. The last thing you want to hear is a phone call from a policeman at 4:30 in the morning. And this was on July the 4th. Of 2020, to tell us that the previous afternoon Jeff had passed away. He had been on his way from his apartment to the main building to get his mail, collapsed off the sidewalk into grass. It was 110 degrees, and he just lay there. Nobody helped him until finally, after several hours, somebody called the paramedics, and they came and picked him up. took him to the hospital, but he was DOA even at the scene. He was gone already in the grass. After he was gone, my second son, Jared, was kind enough to go over to the house, or to the apartment, and pick up the valuable things that we wanted and the pictures and mementos. And he brought me his papers. And it was several weeks later that I was going through all Jeff's papers when I found a doctor's report. And the doctor's report told Jeff, this was 11 months before, that his liver was severely damaged. In fact, so severely damaged by opioids and alcohol that there was no way he was going to live more than a couple more years. And I didn't know that. He never told anybody. He knew it, but we did not know. So that's when I called you among all of our friends and said, we lost Jeff.
I remember that day. And that's what you said. You said, we lost Jeff.
Yeah.
And that stopped me in my tracks. And I couldn't believe it. You know, we've been praying for Jeff for many years, and you'd been keeping us updated on his situation. And yeah, things looked really hopeful. And then I guess that's what made it the shock, is things were going better for him. And then we get this call, and that was hard. And I just felt for you two, and I felt for your family. And it's shock like that makes us think about things in life that matter. And, you know, in that moment, did God come to mind?
Yes. I love to sing. In fact, I sing in a choir. And at that moment, what came to my mind was, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. We were so blessed to have him. You know, it's interesting. I spent more time with Jeff in those 37 years than I did in 40 years with any of the other boys. It was like God knew that I was only going to have him for a short time. So let's maximize that time. We played golf together. We played, we watched baseball. We went to baseball games, football games. So after he passed, we had to quickly pull together a funeral service for him. And with COVID, that meant that our family, we just could have our family, and that's all. And they had all sit apart from each other. But the pastor who did the service said they'd never seen a service where the eulogies were given by the oldest brother and the father.
But in the tragedy, it's like the family pulled together. What can we do to help? And so different ones did different things to help.
And it brought the rest of the family closer together.
JeanneKay, what was it like for you?
I'm not gonna, I was not happy. I wanted my son back. So it was very hard for me to talk about it. I wanted it to go away. So it took me a while before I could really talk with anyone other than Jim about it. And I think people need to know that not everybody grieves the same. And sometimes you just have to do what works for you and be patient.
And the thing we
And
learned,
you have to rely on God, because God can help you. And you need to know that. And we can't control everything. We really can't control anything. And God's in charge. We don't always know the whys. We have to keep our faith in God.
there's stages of grief that you hear about, the stages of shock, and then and then anger, and then depression, then bargaining with God, and finally acceptance. But in reality, you bounce around in all those stages every day. Something comes up, you think of something, you hear something, somebody says something. And that's normal. That's the stages of life. But you accept the fact that we had a blessing in that boy for 37 years, and they were good quality years for the most part.
And we've really focused as a family on the good and getting together more as a family, because we realize we don't know what's going to happen, and we don't want to miss out on our chances to be with our family and be together. So even out of tragedy, good things came of it.
One of the good things, John, was that we decided to establish a scholarship in Jeff's name. It's for the a terrific hitting ball player at the University of Arizona. And so that has been done, and the first recipient has been awarded, and that will be an annual scholarship. We set up an endowment fund to fund that after we're gone. So there will always be a scholarship in his name, which they were quite excited about. Most of the people give scholarships for football, but they were quite excited for baseball. And the other thing that was really interesting, I was amazed at how many people I met who had also lost a child. I had no idea. And it was comforting to be able to talk to those people, to realize that what we were going through was normal, to know that we were loved and cared for, and how to transition into memories instead of hugs. So it was terrific. It's really bonded us with some wonderful people and gave us an opportunity to comfort them.
When we were with you, Noonie and I were with you a couple months ago, and to see your strength and see your faith. I mean, you are both outspoken in your faith, and you are just ambassadors for Christ. And I see that. And you're able to talk to Noonie and me about Jeff and about your walk with God and how he met you at different places along the way. And like you said, now you're able to help other people too, who are going through situations just like yours. Was there I don't even want to call it a turning point, but I don't know what other word to use. And maybe the turning point hasn't come yet, but has there been a turning point where you were able to see God meet you in a special way, and where you really internalize some things that the Lord taught you and provided for you in his grace? I don't even know how to ask that question, but something has happened in your lives. I see a stronger Jim and JeanneKay than 2 years ago.
And I reached that before JeanneKay. A lot of prayer, a lot of time spent with the Lord and listening to what he said. It's funny, a lot of my friends think that prayer is talking to God. And I told them it's listening to God too, twice as much as you talk to him. And that really came through to me. I really felt his presence, and I felt his strength. And I was able to reach out to other people and be able to speak to the quality of life and how precious life is, so that we spend every moment, the rest of our lives, being grateful for the time that we have, not wasting it. It's made our children more serious about life, and yet able to enjoy it because we trust in the Lord. And so I hit that pretty early, and I was able to reach out to others who were hurting, and they thought they were comforting me, and I was comforting them. And I know the Lord comforts me, and I know we will get a chance to see Jeff again, and he'll be proud of how strong we have been in his absence.
JeanneKay, how about you? Your process was different than Jim.
Yeah, it took me longer, but the peace that came when it finally arrived was a blessing, because it just makes the difference in the day, and how you look at the day, and how much more grateful I am for the life I have. And I cherish the memories and try and focus on all the good things and not as much on the losses.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, but I think people need to know, who lose a child, is you're not the only one who's ever had that happen. There are plenty of people who will comfort you if you share the word, but you dwell in talking about the good things in Jeff, in your child that you lost. The bad things, they disappear. Even Jameson said, boy, in the last year and a half, any bad thoughts have seemed to disappear. All the good ones are rising to the surface. So it is a normal part of life. God gives you the strength to work through it. He gives you the friends to help you through it. And through our Bible studies that we have and through our church and our pastors, we've been able to feel that strength, which is amazing. I mean, you get that strength coming into you, flowing into you. It's like this tragedy has opened the door to seeking God's strength, and he's given it to us.
And the thing that hits me is we're talking about something that didn't happen 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but this is less than 2 years ago. And this is raw. It's still raw. And thank you for taking the courage to talk to me and our listeners about this, because I know it's hard. You're still walking through this. This isn't something that you just package up and you put it aside and say, we're through this. You'll never get through it, but you're getting through it in a different way. So it's still fresh.
Absolutely. And you get flashbacks and you get relapses, if you will. But I don't get anger or anything else other than I feel thankful to the Lord that we had Jeff, that we had the time with Jeff, and the quality of time that we had with Jeff. It's just wonderful. And it's brought me so much closer to so many people and to be a missionary to others. So many people know of our story that if they hear of someone who has loss, they tell me about it. And I have one individual that we send things back and forth to each other, and it's just been a wonderful blessing. And I wanted to ask you if it was okay if I read part of an email he just sent me a couple days ago. He says, my eternal focus is different. Whenever thoughts of loss come into my mind, I take them captive and consider that my daughter is in glory. She is where we are striving to be. If I could walk through heaven's gates and ask her if she wanted to come back to this world so we could have more time together, I'm certain that she would tell me that heaven is awesome, that she's good where she is. She reminded me to finish strong and to see me whenever I make it home. So I thought that was a great message. And so that's really sums up what I'm trying to share and with other people.
Oh, thank you. And JeanneKay, any closing thoughts?
Cherish all the times that Jeff and I would get excited about doing things, when we would move into a new house and he would help us, or he and I would cook together, just focusing on the good things and the blessings. And God gave us a gift in Jeff, but he wanted him back.
And I think one thing that JeanneKay said earlier, it can tear you apart between a husband and wife, or you can lean on each other and the Lord, and that's what we've done. The Lord has blessed us because we got strength from each other.
Well, we want to pray for you in this healing process, and you've got listeners now people you don't even know around the world who will join you in prayer too. And God has done an amazing work in your lives. I just am floored by your faith, and you have decided to cling to the Lord. And thank you for sharing the things you did today and the perspectives that you have.
I thank the Lord every day that this couple from California were out in the hot sun, boiling, and I'm sitting under a big, beautiful shade. Said, hey, you guys, come over here and let's talk about the Lord. Amazingly, we both loved the Lord and shared our witness at that time, and that has grown into a terrific fellowship. Thank you for Fresh Faith, and thank you for your work. We love you guys, and we pray for you too.
And the Lord's blessings on you, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you might be as emotionally wrung out as I was after I finished that conversation with Jim and JeanneKay Van Houten. If you've gone through loss and have something to share with our listeners, as Jim and JeanneKay have, would you please let me know? This is a hard thing, really hard. And we can help each other. You can help others who are going through it, just like Jim and JeanneKay may have helped you and are helping so many other people. It's times like this that we find our greatest comfort in Christ. I may have shared this in a recent episode, but it's worth saying again, especially when we're on this topic. When Jesus returns, followed by God's establishing the new heaven and new earth, all creation will be restored. Christ will return. He'll judge sin and evil. He'll usher in righteousness and peace. Sin will be eradicated. Perfect fellowship with God will be enjoyed. We look at that in the future, but in our pain now, in times of brokenness, boy, that's hard. But we have to look ahead, and Jesus will make things right when he comes in his glory. He'll restore. But even today, Jesus restores. As you listen to Jim and JeanneKay, you could hear the restoration in their lives. Yeah, they're still on the journey, but God is restoring them. Jesus restores. He restores broken relationships between friends. He restores marriages. He restores our joy when it's stolen by tragedy, hurt, or disappointment. He restores our hope when we're consumed by loss. He restores our fellowship with the Father when we've turned away from him. He also restores our faith when we have little to hang on to. He even restores our love for him when our heart's cold. And he restores our peace when worry overtakes us. Jesus restores. He restores. No matter where you need restoration in your life right now, look to Jesus. Thank you, Jim and JeanneKay, again for being on the podcast. I appreciate your courage and taking the time to come join me. You know, we all need a place where we can come together to know Christ. We can't do this thing alone. And I established Fresh Faith 24/7 for that. It could be the place for you. It's not a church, but it's a community of believers who are desperate to know Jesus. It's all about that. We do it together. So visit freshfaith247.com and sign up. As we come to the end of this episode, I turn to 2 Corinthians 1, verses 3 and 4. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction, with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. Thanks for joining me. I'll talk to you next season.